Hello there, this is the March 5th recap of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The first video we have is a video showing Putin's hand actually going through the microphone, meaning this video is fake. As you can see, Putin is not actually there, and in response, Zelensky trolls Putin by moving the microphone as so. What a legend. Okay. Working on my control shortcuts. Control W closes the tabs. So, working on that. Goes faster. Next video we have is Sky News reporters escape ambush under fire in Ukraine. I thought this was actually pretty interesting.
But the government has warned for days of Russian saboteurs who've infiltrated the country to bring terror. Death squads who are attacking civilians in their cars as they flee. They do exist, as we found out.
Oh, that's a tyre, isn't it?
Oh, that's a bullet.
That was a bullet.
Okay.
No, it wasn't a bullet.
It wasn't. Something blew up under us.
Something went bang.
Okay.
We make our way down the embankment.
Where are
Camera operator Richie Mockler has taken 2 rounds to his body armour, but is still stuck in the car.
Okay,
Keep going.
Stuart. Come on, Stuart, I'm rolling.
Which that is terrifying. Next video is actually pretty brave and quite inspiring. Citizens are walking towards shooting Russian soldiers, telling them to get the F out.
Нахуй домой!
Just a large group of Ukrainian citizens. Just walking towards them. It's crazy. The next video, another Russian helicopter brought down by the UA. That's insane. I haven't seen such a high definition video of a helicopter being brought down like this during this war. But anyway, over 66,000 men returned to Ukraine from abroad since the war has broken out. United States Secretary of State Anthony Blinken told BBC that, quote, Ukraine can absolutely win against Russia, end quote. He added that, quote, the war has already not gone as Russian President Vladimir Putin might have planned, end quote. I don't know if Anthony Blinken actually thinks that Ukraine can win against Russia, or if he's just saying this to boost their morale, but either way, that is his statement. Down here you'll see he also states, quote, if it's the intention of Moscow to try somehow to topple the government and install its own puppet regime, Ukrainians are going to reject that one way or the other, end quote, which is what I've been saying this whole time, is that, Ukrainian citizens are not going to just accept the fact that Russia's taken over their country if that ends up happening. And the next thing we have is Zelensky addresses the nation, quote, today is Saturday, but it means nothing. Our country doesn't have weekends anymore. It doesn't matter what's on the clock or on the calendar, and it will be this way until we win, end quote. Then moving on over to this, Zelensky says, quote, "I'm sure that soon we will tell our people, come back, it's safe now," end quote. In his latest address to the nation, Zelensky thanked Poland for welcoming hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians fleeing the war. Quote, "We effectively don't have a border with Poland anymore," which I thought that was quite interesting. Russian forces kill hero of Ukraine, Captain Shcherbeniv. I don't really want to try to correct myself in pronouncing that because I already know I pronounced that wrong. But hero of Ukraine, for those that don't know, is a honorary title that some receive in Ukraine. 34-year-old Ukrainian Captain Valery, I want to say Shcherbeniv, but I'm not sure, was killed in the battle near Hostomel, a city on the outskirts of Kyiv, on his birthday on March 3rd. Very sad. Rest in peace. Anyone except for Russian nationals supporting Ukraine's cause is welcome to try and enlist, whether they have combat experience or not. I think Putin miscalculated. He underestimated how hard Ukrainians are willing to fight for our country. That is an article from Politico. Also quite interesting. CNN's Clarissa Ward stops her live report to help elderly civilians trying
These
to flee
people have
Kyiv,
band under
evacuate as Russian
bombardment
forces
for
close
7
in
straight
on
days and
the
are
capital.
only just leaving their homes. And they're leaving them reluctantly. And they're leaving.
Right around here. Yeah.
It's just an awful, awful scene. And these people are the lucky ones. Можно вам помочь? Можно вам помочь? Мне очень жарко. Это плохая. Можно вам помочь? Давайте мне вот это. Давайте мне. I'm just gonna help her carry this bag a second. Excuse me, John. While we try to. Ну вот так. Вот так. Ничего страшного. Ничего страшного. Как вас зовут? So people are obviously incredibly.
That's very nice of her. Pioneer, PayPal, Adobe suspend operations in Russia. The 3 companies have joined the growing list of international brands that refuse to do business in Russia over its aggression against Russia. Israeli Prime Minister Syria visits Russia, talks to Putin. PM Naftali Bennett has arrived in Moscow for unannounced negotiations with Russian President Vladimir Putin. This was later confirmed by Putin's spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov. I believe I pronounced that. I'm going to do horribly at pronouncing names, for the record. The thing about this is a few days ago, reports say that Zelensky urged Israel's prime minister to try to get Putin to stop the war. So there's that. A video from the control room of the Zaporizhia, I don't know how to pronounce it, but the nuclear power plant that was under fire the other day amid Russia's fire towards the facility. Here is that video while that was. It's in Ukrainian. It says, "Immediately stop fire. You endanger the security of the whole world," the control room says through loudspeakers. I don't know if this is a typo or if it was just translated weird because of translation barriers, but very interesting nonetheless. Then we have, in Kyiv, a woman knocked down a Russian drone from a balcony with a jar of cucumbers. How do they expect to occupy this country? Now, at first, I was a bit skeptical if this was true, but this is actually a Ukrainian government official that has tweeted this. So, this is a photograph from Kyiv that just shows the sheer destruction of what has occurred. You see down here the buildings, the smoke, kind of reminiscing all throughout. Terrible. Then we have, quote, "I woke up from a call from a friend. He told me Russia was bombing Kyiv end quote. Says Artem Basisty, a 29-year-old from Crimea who lived in Kyiv for 4 years. He called his mom in occupied Crimea to tell her what happened, but she didn't believe him. And I think that just shows, a lot of people, I mean, it's crazy how so many Russians believe the deep state or the Russian state media. But then again, it's kind of hard to blame them given that it's complete indoctrination. They're brainwashing their civilians into believing these things. I mean, some have, the internet and can see things outside of all that, but I mean, it's crazy. MasterCard and Visa suspends all operations in Russia. The occupiers blew up the railway tracks, so the people who were waiting for the evacuation from the European railway station are asked now to move to Novorossiya Highway, I believe that's how you pronounce that, from where they will be evacuated by bus to Kyiv. So, there was supposed to be a ceasefire today for Ukrainians to evacuate. I was a bit skeptical on if Russia would follow through with that, and they did not follow through with that, and they breached their promise to ceasefire. Unfortunately, not out of pocket coming from them. Very sad. Zelensky says, talk to Elon Musk. I'm grateful to him for supporting Ukraine with words and deeds. Next week, we will receive another batch of Starlink systems for destroyed cities. Discuss possible space projects, but I'll talk about this after the war. It's kind of cool that he has actually talked with Elon Musk, who has been helping him, Ukraine, with satellites and Ukrainian citizens being able to access the internet outside of, or still be able to access the internet if satellites are taken out. The ferocity of Ukraine's defense against Russia attack is already for the history books. It really illustrates the huge difference it makes when the defender knows exactly why they're fighting while the attacker's army doesn't, which is something that you're really seeing with Russia right now, with a lot of people surrendering, or a lot of Russian forces surrendering, rioting, protesting. They don't want to do this, and seeing a lot of them are really just kids. Some of them aren't even being told that they're going into battle to fight. Some are being told Ukraine is going to welcome them in open arms and will be greeted with flowers and all that. How Putin and other Russian officials are just lying, to the whole world, but more specifically, their own people, because their own people often don't really know anything else other than what their country is telling them. In other news, Ukrainian farmers are well on their way to being the third largest army in Ukraine, if not the second, which this is actually kind of funny. I cannot tell you how many videos I've seen of farmers just towing Russian tanks. Honestly, perhaps one of the most laughable parts of this. Good on them. Good on Ukraine. Good on the farmers. Marco Rubio tweeted, this is the week that proved that being dependent on a criminal like Putin for our oil is a bigger threat to America than climate change. Rubio here is referring to how the United States is still buying oil from Russia and has not sanctioned Russia's oil. A war crime is a war crime is like saying murder is the same as jaywalking because both are crimes. Come on. Sharing videos of captured Russian soldiers with the intent of their parents finding them and knowing they're alive is not the same as shelling a hospital or school. And this is, of course, referring to how Ukraine technically committed a war crime by showing videos of captured Russian soldiers. And some making the argument that, well, Ukraine is just as bad as Russia when you're talking about war crimes. Please. Reuters says Russia's foreign ministry called on European Union and NATO countries to, quote, stop pumping weapons to Ukraine. It said Moscow is particularly worried that portable anti-aerial Stinger missiles could end up in the hands of terrorists posing a threat to airlines, which, of course, is Russia just making up more excuses. I don't even know why they're trying at this point. Obviously, the worry is not that the weapons NATO is providing to Ukraine will get into the wrong hands. The worry is that it will get into hands that Russia does not like, which they should get into the hands Russia does not like. This article from the Kyiv Dependent shows 10 days of suffering, Russia's war against Ukraine in photos. And I really thought these photos were very, I don't want to say good, but very well taken photos and good depictions of what is going on. I mean, it really captures the environment of what is happening. It's sad and sickening. Just the pure destruction. Look at that. I mean, zoom in on that. No. Okay. Perhaps not. Anyway. Very sad indeed. Zelensky tweeted, as part of the constant dialogue, I had another conversation with the President of the United States. The agenda included the issues of security, financial support for Ukraine, and the continuation of sanctions against Russia. A team of Russian soldiers wanted to use the elevator to reach the roof of an office building. The Ukrainian administration of the building trapped them inside by cutting off the electricity. The Ukrainians also used an industrial camera to take this commemorative photo, which is actually quite funny and brilliant on part of Ukraine. Once again, the sheer brilliance, arguably even patriotism. I would say that is kind of obvious, and the sheer nobility, bravery, and willingness to stand up and fight for their country. Japan announced it would accept refugees from Ukraine and send bulletproof vests to Kyiv, extraordinary measures taken by one of the countries least welcoming to refugees, and also has a self-imposed arms exports ban. So the fact that they are sending bulletproof vests to Kyiv, even though they have an exports ban for self-imposed arms, and, as stated, one of the least welcoming to accept refugees, that says something. Wall Street Journal says the U.S. is working with Poland on the possibility of Poland providing fighter jets to Ukraine in return for American F-16 jet fighters, U.S. officials said on March 5th. The deal would require White House approval and congressional action, the U.S. officials said. So what this would actually do is, the United States is a bit worried about us giving Ukraine our fighter jets. But Poland seems to be willing to do so. So the deal is that Poland will give their fighter jets to Ukraine, and in return, we will give Poland some of our American F-16 jet fighters. So there is that. Voice of America, 3,000 U.S. volunteers have responded to Ukraine's call for people to serve in an international battalion that will help resist Russia's all-out invasion, a representative of the Ukrainian embassy in Washington told VOA. I don't know if people would say it as VOA or not, but quite interesting. 3,000 may not sound like a lot compared to the population of the United States, but it's actually quite a bit for being just over a week into this invasion, and people are willingly from the United States going over there. Quite noble as well. CNN China's foreign minister Wang Yi said the evolution of the situation in Ukraine is, quote, something China does not want to see, end quote, in a phone call with U.S. Secretary of State Blinken on March 5th. According to a statement from the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs published by CNN, this is also quite interesting considering the fact that China seemed to be cozying up to Russia there for a hot minute there. Looked like they might be trying to get some sort of form of alliance in there, which they do kind of have an alliance, have had one since the 90s, even though their alliance essentially is purely just the fact that they hate the United States, simply put. Moving on, Marco Rubio actually tweeted a photo of President Zelensky, and he said, "On Zoom call now with President Zelensky of Ukraine." This is after Zelensky asked people to stop sharing photos of him, and I don't really want to get off the rails with my opinion here, but it kind of just sounds like, he's trying to get some clout in here by saying, "Oh, look at me, I'm on call with President Zelensky." I mean, I don't see any reason for this, and taking a photo of a private Zoom call like that, and after Zelensky said to stop doing it because people were taking the photos and were able to trace the photo's location. So even though, well, they likely can't do that for this since it's a picture of a screen, it still goes against Zelensky's wishes. And for what? Elon Musk tweeted, "Hate to say it, but we need to increase oil and gas output immediately. Extraordinary times demand extraordinary measures." And he said, "Obviously, this would negatively affect Tesla, but sustainable energy solutions simply cannot react instantaneously to make up for Russian oil and gas exports." So there you have Elon Musk calling for the U.S. to ramp up their oil and gas output so that we can stop depending on Russia so much, even though that would negatively affect them. And then this is something I've been seeing going around the internet a little bit. A transcript of Putin and Biden's phone call. So I will do a quick little fact check of this afterwards and provide a bit more history. But I will say I believe this claims to be from the phone call Biden and Putin had on February 12th. So on the left you have B1 and P1, and then B2, P2, and all that. So B is, of course, Biden, and P is, of course, Putin. And then 1 and 2 is just the different lines. So, here's how the transcript claims it happened. "Good evening, Mr. President." "Good evening." "Listen, I'd like to speak to you regarding our country's..." "Pardon me, but I have nothing to disclose." "Well, now, wait a minute. There are lives at stake here, and, it's in everyone's, to say that we..." "Sir, with all due respect, you are not the one to make decisions." Now look here. I am the sitting President of the United States of America, and I am most certainly in the position of influence of our military and intelligence department. What we have to do, now that escalations have, sir, not to disappoint, but you are sitting president of nothing and in no positions to influence our world or its doings. Now, that's not regarding influence, we think it has to stop here. Now, if all of us could just, there is none, so that's better way to say than to stand down immediately. Our conversation now concludes. And Putin hangs up. So, ignoring the horrible impressions, I would like to break down this transcript a bit, so this video may be a bit longer than usual. So here you have these lines. Inaudible obviously means, it was, they were unable to make out what exactly they were saying. Maybe they were mumbling, or maybe it was just hard to decipher. It says inaudible here for Putin's line where he says, "Sir," inaudible, "respect." but I think it's safe to say, sir, with all due respect, you were not the one to make decisions. And then you have Biden saying that he's the sitting president of the United States, and Putin says you are the sitting president of nothing. You see, Biden tried to stand up a bit to Putin here, and then that did not go over. And then Putin said our conversation concludes and hung up on his presidential rear end. So, I've seen this a lot on social media. I've tried Googling this. I've looked far and wide on the internet and was not able to find anything on it. I did some more diving into where this came from, and the furthest back this goes I found was from this video on Rumble from user Patriot News and Updates. Now, I'm going to try to find where it is, but essentially this person claims to have gotten this transcript from someone he says is at the top of the top.
Or how important my source that I've been telling you about for over a year now actually is. And I think it also shows a great shift in information dissemination so that we could now maybe start sharing things a little bit more freely without all of the added mystery around the intel that's coming out. Why do I say that? Well, I think you're about to see. So, little background story before I put the item on the screen. I had to jump through a lot of hoops to receive this little tidbit. It's a document. And I guess it's not, I don't want to say I overhyped it, because I don't think I did. It's what we already know, but I'm just shocked that I'm in possession of it, and I get to share it with you guys tonight. So this is a document of a phone conversation, a phone transcript. Now, a lot of it is heavily redacted, so you're not going to see where it came from or timestamps or other pertinent information. You're going to see some of it is redacted on the screen. But the information comes straight from the top. Here it is. This is a phone conversation. Let me take it off. This is a phone conversation between Vladimir Putin and Joe Biden, which occurred just a few days ago. I don't know the exact date. It predates Russia's invasion.
And so then he goes over the document and reads it just as I have.
Now, when you see sick, that now that's not regarding influence. Immediately, our conversation now concludes. He hung up on him. You're sitting president of nothing, and he interrupted him 4 times, and then he hung up on him. I can't even with this. So
I'm just showing this part after the actual transcript for viewers to get a bit more of a sense of the source here.
Then what I'm told is that he now refuses to take phone calls from Biden. This is the only phone call that he's taken during his entire presidency, and
that's not true. Biden has taken more than just this phone call with Putin.
He's not.
during his presidency. Since this moment, I'm unsure. He is coughing an awful lot.
You are sitting president.
General Grievous over here.
That's right. He says it. Oh my lord. So I have a pretty strong feeling that you're not going to end up seeing that document on the mainstream media for obvious purposes.
Now, that point I can see, if this is true, I think that would make sense not to see it as much on mainstream media, possibly, but I still think, if you were to Google it, you would likely find it.
But for us, the reason why I classify that as intel is because it comes
On some, you'd likely find it in some articles, even, right-wing articles.
from a very, very high source within our, it comes from a very high source. And
Yeah, he starts to say very high source within our, so I would imagine he's saying within, from our U.S. government. I don't think he got this from, if he did actually obtain this from the, top of the top, I doubt I doubt it's from Russian government, but rather U.S. officials.
For Putin to say in a conversation with Joe Biden that you are not a sitting president, that to me only further confirms everything that we've been talking about for a year. It confirms election fraud. It confirms whose side Putin is on. It confirms Putin is a white hat. That then therefore confirms that the whole Ukrainian debacle, invasion, ooh, Godzilla. I don't know why I said Godzilla. Didn't he invade? He must have. How did he get there if he didn't invade? Couldn't have been invited.
We got a comedian in the house, guys.
Just think about it. Godzilla. Forget about Godzilla. Let's get back. Sometimes I try to be like a funny guy, and I'm not. So, it further confirms devolution. If Putin wasn't just making fun of him, because I don't think he was. I think he was trying to dig. I think he was trying to say, hey, you, I'm not going to have any kind of serious conversation with you. I'm just going to tell you, you're not who you're pretending to be, and I'm going to exit now. It's pretty much what he did. It confirms everything that we've been talking about. If Putin is not recognizing Joe Biden as the president of the United States, then who is?
All right, so he goes on a bit more, talking about this. You can view full video here if you'd like on Rumble, and he's saying Putin saying that Biden is the president of nothing means that Putin is saying that the election was stolen and all that, which was not even my interpretation of the transcript by Putin saying you're the president of nothing. I simply just thought that was him saying that you don't have any power. It was just trying to discredit Biden, not actually say that he was the president of nothing. Though, this is as far back as this transcript goes. This guy claims he got it from the very top, from some inside source. He does have 200,000 followers. Now, for my fact check of this, on whether it is true or false, I would have to label this as unsure. this guy essentially reminds me of Alex Jones on Xanax. I mean, with the,
I got this from the top of the top. I'm telling you. Turn to the frickin' frog, shit.
I mean, that's what that reminds me of, I really can't say if this is true or not, because I think there will have to be some more digging done by people who have more capabilities of having inside information. But, yeah. Moving on from all that. Now, this is a map, obviously, that I wanted to show. So, in yesterday's podcast, I talked about how, the theory is that one of the main reasons Putin is invading Ukraine right here is because Ukraine's looking to join NATO, and Putin doesn't want to be surrounded by NATO countries. He feels threatened by it, is the idea, which I can definitely see. But here's the thing with that, okay? Let's say, okay, Russia takes Ukraine. They won. Boom. Okay. Well, now guess what? See, I have blue as Russia, red as NATO. Those are the NATO countries that would border it. Alright? Along with, you got some along here, south of the Black Sea as well. Putin would then actually be surrounded by NATO on all sides. So, that then also just makes you question, what is Putin's game plan here? What is his end game? And with that question, that is all I have for today's episode. I should be having another one out tomorrow night. And as always, glory to Ukraine.
Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй!
What's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Stop now. What's that sound? Everybody look.